According to reports today, we're about 7 to 10 days away from the NHL's first official announcement about what the plan is with the season. And there's a lot of, they don't have a plan, or it's going to take forever, or they're not going to have this, they're not going to have that. It is the exact same discussion we were having last spring. It feels like spring all over again, because we're having the exact same debates. There won't be a season, it's not going to happen, this is blah, 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 blah. Anyway. While basketball's coming back, football's still a thing, baseball's working on next year. So you kind of have to have hockey. And then once we get back into it, this conversation starts again. Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. I wanted to do kind of a tale of the tape thing. And I know this is probably overly simplistic. But if you believe that Connor McDavid's the best player in the game, you can make that case. If you believe Sidney Crosby is still the best player in the game, you can make that case as well. Now, for me, I'm wearing a Crosby jersey because I think overall, Crosby's been the best player. But right now, if I'm starting a team right now, Connor McDavid's the guy I'm picking. Now, we'll start with the 2019-2020 numbers. McDavid in 64 games, 34 goals, 63 assists, 97 points. Absolutely fantastic season. Every game that Connor McDavid plays, there's at least one play where you realize he's in a whole other stratosphere. Sidney Crosby, 41 games, 16 goals, 31 assists, 47 points. Misses a bunch of games with injury. His goal scoring has always fluctuated throughout his career. It's not really as important with his overall play as it is with other star players. The points are still there. So even if he's not getting the goals, he's still getting you more than a point a game. He's pretty reliable that way. Now, the age is a big thing here. They're 10 years apart. Crosby, 33. McDavid, 23. And I understand that Crosby's still a great player, but if you're starting a team now and you say, well, I would start it with Crosby instead of McDavid, probably a Penguins fan, or you're enamored with the other stats that have been put up by Crosby over his career. Now, playoffs, this is where Oiler fans are going to say, hey, that's not fair. 17 games for Connor McDavid, 10 goals, 8 assists, 18 points. This year, 4 games, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. Absolutely fantastic playoffs for him this year, but the rest of the team, not so much. Now, on the McDavid, or on the Crosby side, I should say, 168 games played, 68 goals, 121 assists, 189 points. This year's playoffs, 4 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. It's worthy of note that it's not Connor McDavid's fault that the Oilers are not making progress, as the Penguins did with Crosby. Crosby gets drafted in 2005, and in 2009 they're winning a cup. McDavid gets drafted in 2015. It's 5 years later. They've won a round, and that was a few years ago, and we're still waiting on them to take that next step. But I wouldn't put that on McDavid. But if you want to state that Crosby by this point in his career is already winning Stanley Cups, you can, because he had already won one before that 5-year point in his career. Now, first team All-Star, so at the end of the year where they say, all right, the best in the league, there are 3 for Connor McDavid, no second-team All-Stars. 4 first-team All-Stars for Crosby, 4 second-team All-Stars. So 8 times. At the end of the year, the NHL said he's either the best or second-best center in the entire National Hockey League. Again, it is kind of an apples to oranges thing, because McDavid, 10 less years, Crosby has been pretty darn dominant throughout when he's been able to play. And there are other years that he's not as a first or second best center in the league due to injury. And so that's definitely something that has affected Crosby's numbers overall. And again, if you're going to state that Crosby's the best, you can use that as definitely a reason. Now, awards. The Art Ross Trophy's gone to Connor McDavid, 2016-2017 season and 2017-2018. The Ted Lindsay Award, which of course is voted on by the players, 2016-2017 season as well as 2017-2018. And the Hart Trophy in 2016-2017. That was his big year, was the 16-17 season. And it's great to see a guy win 3 awards and kind of pose behind all of them. No Stanley Cups, though. That's the award that people are going to point to. Again, playing in Edmonton, he has not had the opportunity to play for a Stanley Cup. He could have if things had been run a little bit differently by the Oilers. We can get into why or how, but I don't think we can put that on McDavid. Now, on the Crosby side, the trophies, there's a lot more. And again, he has 10 extra years to get them. Art Ross, he has 2. 2006, 2007, 2013, 2014. Now, again, if you're a Crosby fan, you're going to say, well, he's not going to win a lot of Art Ross trophies in seasons where he's getting hurt. And Crosby's game is more than points. You'd be right. Ted Lindsay Award, 3 times he's won that. 2006, 2007, 2012, 2013 season, 2013, 2014 season as well. The Hart Trophy, 2006, 2007 season, as well as 2013, 2014 season. The Messier Award for Leadership, an award not won by McDavid. 2009, 2010 season. He also won the Richard Trophy that year. And the 2016-2017 season, he also won the Maurice Richard Trophy. And that's what's really interesting with Crosby as well. He's considered to be a great goal scorer, but seeing 2 Richard trophies kind of surprises some because he's not really thought of in that manner. And yet there he is with 2 of them. Conn Smythe, he's got 2 of those. He got it in 2016 and in 2017. So of the 3 Stanley Cups awarded, he's won 2 of those Conn Smythes. The other one went to Malkin. And that's an interesting thing about both McDavid and Crosby, and this is part of the reason why the Oilers can be compared to the Penguins in their makeup. McDavid has Draisaitl. Now, Draisaitl should be anchoring his own line throughout. Has started to do so over the last year and a half, right? And when Draisaitl's been able to anchor his own line, he's done pretty well. The results were iffy in a couple of the early years, but he's become excellent on his own. He can run his own line. Malkin was able to run his own line right out of the gate. And Malkin was better earlier in his career than Draisaitl was early in his career. But now I would say between the two, it's a comparable. Because we've had that discussion before about Crosby. Yes, Crosby wins Stanley Cups, but part of it is he's got Malkin as the second line center. But again, that's kind of how you win Stanley Cups. You have to have more than one really good player. And both Draisaitl and Malkin have been franchise-level players. And for Draisaitl, it's just kind of getting started. And for Malkin, you get the feeling that if he can stay healthy, the same argument you make with Crosby, that Malkin could be top 3 in scoring in the NHL almost every year. And so we can get into the Malkin versus Draisaitl part of it at some point, should I decide to do that. But again, I think that while that argument can be made for one or for the other, when I see somebody making that complaint like, well, McDavid's great, but Draisaitl's better than him. Yeah, but at certain seasons, Malkin has had better seasons than Crosby, but Crosby is the overall better player. I believe McDavid is the overall better player versus Draisaitl. Draisaitl had an amazing year, lots of awards. I would still start a franchise with McDavid over Draisaitl. Face-offs, this is where it gets interesting. Face-offs, McDavid for his career is 44% on face-offs. Crosby's 52%. And I'm always kind of surprised at the underwhelming numbers for McDavid on the face-offs. It might be the one part of his game that I find kind of weak numbers with. Now hits, Connor McDavid 150 and 351 games. I think he'd admit that's not really his game. But Crosby, it has been 726 hits and 984 games. And it's part of how he gets hurt early in his career, is just some reckless runs that he makes where, you know, you have a choice, make the hit or play it safe, and Crosby's just making the hits. So the way that he plays is going to lead to injuries, and McDavid doesn't play that same style. So I would think that over his career, McDavid will end up playing more games than Crosby does in his career, and he may end up getting more points. Points per game in their careers, right now McDavid has 1.34, Crosby has 1.28. And people are screaming right now saying, but Crosby's later in his career and that's going to drag it down. And right now McDavid's making hay with his career during his prime years. And you're right. During his prime, Crosby was putting up a ton of points as well. It's not that he's not now, but his rate of scoring points has gone down. So I don't know that McDavid can stay at 1.34 when he's in his 30s. I don't know that his career average is going to stay there, but I could see it this coming season being at 1.5. I could see him being a player that scores consistently 120 points this season. And for Crosby, he hit that number once. And again, you know, injury takes him out and concussions and all this. And I get it. But again, if we're just looking at the straight numbers, I think it favors McDavid offensively. Number 1 pick in 2015, number 1 pick in 2005. The interesting thing about that too is, so they're drafted 10 years apart. Crosby wears 87, McDavid wears 97. which means in 2025, we're going to get a number 1 draft pick that wears 107. We're going to go to 3 digits eventually. No, number 7 then is what the guy drafted in 2025 should have. And then, 10 years from now, I'll be having a debate about McDavid versus that player and how far along McDavid is. I think that the argument between McDavid and Crosby is always going to be a matter of, as long as McDavid is stuck on 0 cups, you will always be able to make that argument that Crosby was a leader that got his team through the Stanley Cup playoffs and got 2 Conn Smythes out of it. The leadership area is where I still believe Crosby is the better player. The overall more talented player right now, I think, and again, it's razor thin, but I would still rather have McDavid. But for a leader, Crosby is still that guy. And I remember that Stanley Cup final where it was like, okay, off the face-off, he is the general. He's Harry, you go here, and this is what we're going to do. And then there's a goal like 10 seconds after the face-off. Crosby has this innate ability to take over a game psychologically. He has this ability to see the game before it happens. This is why when people say, could Crosby be a coach? Absolutely. Because he thinks the game very well. He's got the mental side of it down. McDavid does as well, but he's young and he's still learning it. And there are aspects that he's learning through a lot of the frustrating setbacks this team has had. That setback against Chicago, we could talk a year from now about how that was the best thing that ever happened to the Oilers. That this giant setback helped them realize how they need to get to the next level and what they need to do in the playoffs. And as long as they can consistently get to the playoffs, that increases their opportunities as well. They've only made the playoffs twice with McDavid in the lineup. So for McDavid to catch Crosby career-wise, it's going to take a lot. So this is why when we have this debate, I don't think it's necessarily that simple. If I'm picking a player right now, I would pick McDavid. And yet, if you said, okay, it's Game 7, Stanley Cup playoffs, who do you want in your lineup anchoring your first line? I go, Game 7 of a Stanley Cup playoff game, I would pick Crosby. But again, recent history would tell you that the Penguins have lost 9 of their last 10 playoff games. So there you go. And then, of course, people will say, well, that wasn't really on Crosby because there's other things wrong with Pittsburgh. Right, which is exactly what we say about McDavid losing in the playoffs. It's all how you see it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You're just tapping upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.